Did the Las Vegas Aces genuinely beat the Indiana Fever, or did the referees simply gift them the victory? Because when Aya Wilson racks up what feels like 37 uncalled fouls, ranging from moving screens to elbows and outright shoves on Lexie Hull, you really have to question whether this was competitive basketball or a carefully managed performance. It's almost as if Wilson has her own personal officiating rulebook. Just watch the footage. ESPN even had the audacity to label some of these as highlights. You can clearly see both feet leave the ground and land again, which is an obvious violation. And then there's the double dribble. She spins, touches the ball with both hands, and keeps going. That's playground level stuff, yet the referees completely ignored it. Of course, they did, because it's Aya Wilson. On another play, she gathers the ball, touches it twice mid-spin, and dishes to a teammate, textbook double dribble. Then comes the travel. She lifts her pivot foot clear off the ground. It's the kind of blatant movement you'd expect in a middle school game, not a WNBA semifinal. At one point, she commits 3 of these violations in a single matchup. It's ridiculous. In this breakdown, we're exposing the entire picture. Aya Wilson's stat padding, the glaring free throw imbalance, the missed calls, and the questionable whistles that transformed what should have been a fierce Fever performance into a full-blown officiating scandal. Fans have started calling it a stolen series. And when you hear what Lexie Hull said afterward, you'll understand exactly why. Many are pointing out that by the fourth quarter, Wilson looked more like an NFL offensive lineman than a basketball player, using her body to bulldoze through defenders with zero consequence. And if you don't want your blood pressure rising, don't even watch what happened in overtime. With 2 minutes left, she sets a blatant moving screen on the game's most crucial possession, right after Aaliyah Boston had fouled out on far less contact. That single play sealed the game, and the referees swallowed their whistles like it never happened. The real question hanging over this entire semi-final series is simple. How does one player get her own customized rulebook, while everyone else is forced to follow the actual one? Because when you line up the numbers between Aya Wilson and Aaliyah Boston, the pattern stops looking like coincidence, and starts reeking of orchestration. Across the 5-game stretch, Wilson strutted to the free throw line 26 times. 26. Meanwhile, Boston, who fights through constant physical punishment in the paint, absorbs hits on nearly every rebound, and takes contact on every post-up, only made it to the line 17 times. And here's the kicker, nearly half of those free throws came in just one game, Game 4, when the Aces intentionally fouled late to run down the clock. Take that out, and the disparity becomes indefensible. Even Indiana's head coach couldn't hide her frustration. She said, "It was a physical game. There's a double standard in how people get their calls. Aaliyah Boston is the most poorly officiated post player in this league. She never gets a whistle. If it's going to be physical, then let both teams play that way. If you're going to call holds and chucks, then call them both ways." She was right, it wasn't consistent. Go back to games 1 and 2, and things become downright absurd. Aaliyah Boston, the Fever's franchise cornerstone and arguably the most skilled post player in the WNBA, didn't shoot a single free throw in either of those matchups. Not one. If you watched, you saw Wilson drawing fouls off minimal contact, barely a touch, a brush of the arm, incidental bumps, while Boston was getting hammered under the basket with no response from the officials. How do you even begin to justify that? You can't. This wasn't about differences in playing style. It was about selective enforcement. The Fever's offense ran through Boston all night, yet the whistles seemed to vanish the moment she touched the ball. 2 entire games without a single call in her favor. At that point, it's not bad luck. It's favoritism. The foul stats tell an even uglier truth. Over the 5-game series, Boston was tagged with 19 fouls compared to Wilson's 14. That's baffling when you consider that Boston was the one actually playing defense, contesting every drive, absorbing every elbow, and keeping her hands high on every shot. Wilson, on the other hand, was often switched on to smaller Fever guards to conserve energy, rarely matching up with Boston head-on. And yet somehow, the player doing the most defending ended up with more fouls. That defies logic. Now look at the moving screens. Wilson repeatedly flattened Lexie Hull, physically knocking her down, and instead of calling an offensive foul, the referees let it slide, leading to easy three-pointers. On one play, Wilson sticks her leg out to clear space, creating a wide-open lane for a layup. That's why the rule exists. It's dangerous and unfair. Another time, she shuffles just enough to free her teammate for a clean three-pointer. And then there's the moment she blatantly thrusts her hips into Hull to create room, leading to another uncontested layup. 4 missed offensive fouls, resulting directly in 10 points. When you rewatch the film, it's impossible to miss. Wilson was setting moving screens like it was a core part of her strategy, sliding her feet, jutting her hips, throwing shoulders into defenders to clear paths for Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray. Analysts who reviewed the footage counted 37 uncalled moving screens throughout the series. 37. That's nearly 8 per game, with not a single whistle blown. Meanwhile, Boston couldn't even set a routine pick without getting flagged. The inconsistency was so blatant, you could practically feel the frustration boiling over from the Fever bench. The game felt like a one-way street. Fouls piled up on Boston while Wilson played with impunity. Boston kept her hands high, played straight-up defense, and still got called. Wilson, meanwhile, lowered her shoulders, hooked arms on rebounds, and barreled into defenders like a fullback, yet she walked away untouched every time. Call it tough officiating if you want, but at a certain point, it stops being toughness and starts being protection. The kind of protection designed to preserve a narrative rather than uphold the integrity of the sport. The Fever's coach summed it up perfectly after the loss. It's hard to find rhythm when there's a foul every 10 seconds. When they're constantly at the free throw line, we can't establish any flow. Offense is about rhythm, timing, and spacing, and they took that away from us. That's the uncomfortable truth no one at WNBA headquarters seems brave enough to address. Is the league shielding its self-declared superstar? Because based on this series, Aya Wilson's so-called special whistle doesn't sound like fanfiction. It's backed up by hard data. 0 free throws for Boston in the first 2 games. 17 total compared to Wilson's 26. 19 fouls on Boston, only 14 on Wilson, despite her constant illegal screens. 37 instances caught on camera of Wilson breaking the rules and escaping punishment. Every single number points the same way, and it's never in Indiana's favor. And when you compare those stats to what actually unfolded in the clutch moments of Game 5, it goes from suspicious to flat-out outrageous.